Very good evening, friends. Meeting again in the session of philosophy. So, we'll start with the today's session. The chapter we have started yesterday, means last lecture, is the scope of homeopathy. And in this chapter, he tries to explain exactly the concept where is the field of homeopathy. The way he tried to explain is wonderful because many people doesn't know where exactly homeopathy works, and because of which the enthusiasts used to treat anything and it becomes ridiculous on the part of homeopathy. And there are certain people who doesn't know that homeopathy works in such conditions and they treats those patients without homeopathy. And both things are not at all useful for homeopathy. And that's why we must have exactly the horizon of homeopathy. So to start with chapter, he has started that many people doesn't know what is disease actually. The modern science considers disease in the form of some tangible things, in the form of tangible pathology or visible pathology. And at the same time, from the homeopathic point of view, we consider primarily dynamic disease is the original disease expressing in the form of signs and symptoms or totality of the symptoms. And that is what is called as disease per se. So, most important thing what he
Most
explains over
important
there that
thing what we
most important thing in this is to discriminate. The word which he has used is discriminate. Discriminate means to differentiate between disease per se condition with the pathology or end products, tangible products. Exactly, the disease develops in the center, which is not visible to anyone. We only know signs and symptoms of it, and we must treat those signs and symptoms with the help of law of similars, finding out a right remedy for that condition. And those primary symptoms are the functional symptoms where there is no tangible pathology. If patient comes to you with liver cirrhosis, one should not treat liver cirrhosis, one should treat the patient suffering from liver cirrhosis. He should take into consideration the subjective symptoms of the patient, at the same time the objective symptoms of the patient, finding it out the totality of the symptoms, and he should treat that patient. Our remedy will not depend upon the liver cirrhosis. And this discrimination, one should understand. If one understands this, then it is quite easy to treat the disorders. And this is what we were discussing. We were on page number 38, the first paragraph which we have finished, that will start again. In defining the scope of homeopathy, it is necessary to first discriminate between disease per se as a morbid vital process and the material results or products in which morbid process ultimates. With the latter, homeopathy primarily has nothing to do. That means with the tangible products, homeopathy doesn't have anything to do. It is concerned only with disease per se in its primary functional or dynamical aspect. And this condition one must understand. Every disease develops specifically in the dynamic level, and those dynamic disorders expresses first in the functional affections. No pathology develops within a day. Yesterday patient was normal and today he is having the hypertrophic tonsils. It never happens. Yesterday the patient was normal and today he is having the liver cirrhosis. It never happens. It is a big voyage, right from the functional symptoms to palliation, suppression, and long continued, and then tissue changes happens, and then liver cirrhosis develops. It is not within a day. So those symptoms which were primarily present and which doesn't show any cellular or tissue change and which affect the functions of the human being are the symptoms which comes under the sphere of understanding the individuality, which are more of a subjective character, which are more of a characteristic nature, and because of which it is possible to choose a right remedy. So this is what he is explaining over there. The disease per se is the within the range of homeopathy. Disease per se, Hahnemann says, is nothing more than an alteration in the state of health of an healthy individual caused by the dynamical action of external inimical forces upon life principle of the living organism, making itself known only by the perceptible signs and symptoms, the totality of which represents and for all practical purposes constitutes the disease. And this is a disease. This type of disease is the origin of homeopathy, where there is a dynamic derangement of vital force expressing in the form of totality of the symptom. And that's why in the seventh aphorism, Hahnemann have clearly defined the totality. It is an outwardly reflected picture of an internal essence of the disease, that is of the affection of vital force. And this is what one has to understand. It becomes necessary, therefore, in homeopathic prescribing to carefully separate the primary functional symptoms which represent the morbid process itself from the secondary symptoms which represent the pathological end products of the disease. Underline this, this is very important. You must differentiate what are the primary functional symptoms of the patient and what are the end products. So if a patient of some pathology comes to you, you have to first find it out his past history, so that you have to ask what is the ODP, origin, duration, progress, since when it has started, the way it has started, right from that what were the symptoms. Those symptoms have a very much value in order to differentiate a remedy other than the product of the disease. So if the patient comes to you with any tumor, that tumor will not going to differentiate one patient from another patient. But tumor never develops within a day. It takes its own period, one year, 2 years. How the problem has started, what were the earlier symptoms, those symptoms are very much necessary, are called as primary symptoms of the disease. And secondary is nothing but this tumor. The gross, tangible lesions and products in which disease ultimates are not the primary object of the homeopathic prescription. We do not prescribe for the tumor which affects the patient, nor are we guided by the secondary symptoms which arise from the mere physical presence of the tumor. We prescribe for the patient, selecting and in being guided by the symptoms which represents the morbid vital processes which proceeded, accompanied and ultimated in the development of tumor. So see, this is what one has to understand. This is the horizon of homeopathy. We must be able to understand what is exactly the disease and which is representing at the functional level. If you are able to catch that functional manifestation, it is very easy to catch a remedy. So you should not treat diabetes. You should treat the patient suffering from diabetes. What are his signs and symptoms? Your aim is not to treat the diabetes. Your aim is to treat that individual. Your aim is not to treat the hypertension. Your aim is to treat that individual who is suffering from hypertension. The primary manifestations with which patient has presented, that has the significance. If there is any doubt or if there is a doubt as to which symptoms are primary and which are secondary, the history will decide. And that's why it is necessary to go for detailed history of the case. It is always necessary to understand that in the evolution of disease, in the living organism, functional changes precedes organic and structural changes. Again, underline the same. And there is law which he has written next. Functions creates the organ. This is the only three words laws. Functions creates organs. Means there is first the functions are defined and then cell has developed. Cell has changed structure. This is law called as law of biological development. The way human being is made up of from this law, in the similar manner, disease also happens in the same way. So disease never directly affects the structure, it first affects the functions and then functional manifestations, if persist for longer time of duration, then it is getting converted into a pathological end product. So functions create the organ is the law which is applicable over here also. is a maxim in biological and morphological science from which it is follows that functions reveal the condition of the organ. The order in which the symptoms of the case of a case appear therefore enables us to determine which are primary and which secondary, as well as to ascribe reflex symptoms to their source and correctly localize the disease. So whenever a patient comes with any tumor, for example, patient comes with tumor over there in the throat and it affects his deglutition. So if patient comes to you with this specific symptom and he is explaining that he is having a swelling over there, and since swelling is there, till from that period I am having a problem in swallowing. So this swallowing is not primary problem. Dysphagia is not the primary problem. Patient has started, then you have to take the history, then you will ask the details how the problem has started, and patient explains, I have since last 1.5 years, 2 years, I am having the pain in my throat off and on. I have shown it to many physicians. They have asked me to do USG. They have done the USG. I have 3 USGs and there was nothing, doctor, earlier. And they said it is not any problem. There is no any problem. And they have given me such and such remedies. And then I have utilized those remedies, and if you see the prescription, those are tranquilizers because there was nothing, everything is functional, and because of which it was palliated, and for after long duration, now it is swelling in the thyroid, which is pressing that esophagus, and now he is having dysphagia. So dysphagia is not a primary symptom, it is a secondary symptom, secondary to the pathology. The primary symptoms was there in the throat, which was expressing over there, pain in throat without any swelling over there. It has its own modalities. If you are able to get those modalities, those sensations, those primary symptoms, then you can differentiate that. And if you would get that remedy on the basis of that, that will cure that patient, and gradually that pathology will going to change or reduce. For the homeopathic prescriber, the totality of the functional symptoms of the patient is the disease, in the sense that such symptoms constitute the only perceptible form of disease and are the only rational basis of curative treatment. See, very clearly he is explaining over there. For us, what is important are the primary functional symptoms of the patient. Symptoms are the outwardly perceptible signs or phenomena of the internal morbid changes in the state of the previously healthy organism, and are our only mean of knowing what is disease. So we know that patient is diseased only because it is the language of the disease is signs and symptoms. The totality is the language of the disease. We understand that there is some dynamic derangement inside which is not visible, but we understand that on the basis of signs and symptoms. Those primary manifestations expresses the disease. They represent the change from state of order to state of disorder. When symptoms are removed, the disease ceases to exist. And that's what he has explained in the eighth aphorism. Caesat effectus, caesat causa. This is what written by James Cross over there. And eighth aphorism is nothing but the same thing. Removal of the totality of the symptoms means removal of the disease in its whole extent. And that's why the totality of the symptoms, specifically of the primary functional symptoms, is the sole guide in finding it out a remedy, even though the patient comes with pathology. These phenomena results from and represent the action upon the living organism of some external agent or influence inimical to the life. With the morbific agents themselves, homeopathy primarily has no more to do than it has the tangible products or ultimates of the disease. It is taken for granted that the physician, acting in another capacity than that of a prescriber of homeopathic medicine, will remove the causes of disease and the obstacles to the cure as far as possible before he addresses himself to task of selecting and administering the remedy which is homeopathic to the symptoms of the case by which the cure is to be performed. So, if you will go with this paragraph, then you will understand this is what Hahnemann has said in the seventh aphorism. What he has said first in the seventh aphorism, the causa occasionalis. If there are any causa occasionalis, means maintaining causes, which are because of which the disease is remaining persistent over there, even though you are a homeopathic prescriber, you will not going to prescribe remedy unless and until you remove that maintaining cause. You remove that obstacle in the process of recovery. And after removing that, if the disease no more exists, there is no more need of giving the remedy. He is the intelligent physician who will look toward the causa occasionalis, and after removing the causa occasionalis, still the totality of the symptoms persist, then definitely that is the sole guide to find it out the remedy, and then prescriber will going to prescribe a remedy for that patient. So intelligent physician always looks for such types of obstacles in the case, in thus focusing attention upon the individual and purely the functional side of the disease. Upon disease perceived, the sphere of homeopathy may be clearly perceived. So we must now understand where exactly the field of homeopathy. So homeopathy works in this specific sphere where it cures the patient with this aspect. And then he says, from this point of view, the most significant and general feature to be observed about the phenomena of disease is the fact of motion, action, change. Change of states, forms and positions, change resulting from the application of morbific force in the living organism, change from state of health to state of disease, and the reverse. The change of symptoms and their groupings, change of order to disorder, change of form of disease structure, change of function, change of molecular combination and arrangement. Everywhere, motion, change, and transformation, so long as the life lasts. Human being is the entity, living human being is the entity where there is continuously change. You are not stable every moment. You are a living being, you are susceptible, and there are few things in many things inside your body which are changeable, and there are very few things which are fixed. For example, your constitution structure is fixed, which you carry from your parents, which is not easily changeable. You will not going to change daily. It takes a long period for you to change, get changed. But there are many entities inside your body which are often changing, and this is because you are reacting from external exciting thing to with your internal vital force, and because of which there is always a reaction. So this thing happens to be there off and on, because of which it is possible to find it out or to get all those things. So this is very important, that there is continuously a transformation happens, there is continuously a motion, there is continuously a change, and this happens up and on again and again. So one must understand this concept, that why there is a change, because we react to everything which happens to be there from without. For example, there is sudden change in environment. Our vital force, vital principle reacts to that, tries to adapt that situation. So we used to get very easily, we used to react very easily to all those situations. Till you are in adaptation process, you are no more diseased. You remains to be in state of health. But once your adaptation process is disturbed, then your state of health gets changed into the state of disease. Now the order is getting into disorder. Now harmony is going into disharmony, and a disease develops. So disease is nothing but the alteration in the state, because you are continuously in the state of transformation, motion. You are not remaining static in one place. You are continuously moving. Your energy is continuously in motion, and because of which there are lot of changes happens to be there, till your vital force is stable, till your vital force in the state of health, it tries to maintain balance, and because of which you remains healthy. Once it is disturbed, the reflection starts. In one word, we find ourselves in the realm of pure dynamics. This is true and only sphere of homeopathy, the sphere of vital dynamic. So every moment there are changes and we are in the state of dynamics. We are not structure only. So we are changing. Someone just looks strongly with you, against you, with a big eye. Immediately you get disturbed. You start showing your reactions because our dynamics reacts to it because we are living beings. So this is the true and only sphere of homeopathy, the sphere of dynamics. In fact, homeopathy might well be defined as the science of vital dynamics. Its field is the field of disordered vital phenomena and functional changes in the individual patients, irrespective of the name of the disease and of its cause. So there are non-stop changes which happens in your body. It is not, you are not remaining absolutely static. No, you are changing every moment, every according to every action. You are because you are born with mind, you are born with emotions, you are born with susceptibility, you are born with intellect, you are born with understanding, you are born with memory. There are a number of dynamics inside your body and which are very easily vulnerable. According to the action, they reacts, they changes. And this transformation many a times is maintained, but there are some reflections, but which again goes into the state of health because main function of your vital force is to preserve the health. So you are not remaining always diseased, but because it tries to maintain that balance. Its object is the restoration of the order and harmony in vital functioning of the individual patient. So this is what the object of vital force is there. Its laws are the laws of motion operating in the vital realm, which governs all the vital action. Its fundamental principle is universal principle of mutual action. Actions and reactions are equal and opposite. We react because there is always an action. We react because we have susceptibility, we have predisposition, we have we are living being, and there is a reaction. So whole homeopathy revolves around this law, and this law is nothing but the law of reciprocal action, or which is called to be a law of mutual action, or Newton's third law of motion. There are many names given to this specific law, and then he has taken the help of sixth aphorism from the Organon. The unprejudiced observer, says Hahnemann, well aware of futility of transcendental speculation, which can receive no confirmation from experience, be his power of penetration ever so great, takes note of nothing in every individual case, individual disease, except the changes in the state of health of the body and mind, morbid phenomena, accidents and symptoms, which can be perceived externally by means of senses. That is to say, he notices only the deviations from the former healthy state of the diseased individual, which are felt by the patient himself, remarked by those around him, and observed by the physician. So, for our point of view, speculation doesn't have meaning. Transcendental speculation. The way allopath looks, if patient comes and says, Doctor, I am having sore throat, they ask, open your mouth, they look, there is streptococcal infection, might be. This is speculation. He doesn't know it is a streptococcal infection. He defines. He says it might be viral. This is speculation. Hahnemann says it doesn't have a significance. You must take into consideration what he says. He says sore throat. He is not able to swallow. There is severe pain. Swallowing liquids is better, but swallowing solids is more painful. If he is giving you the totality, that has significance. That you can get from the patient. If the patient is not in a condition to explain you, the attendant is second important source from which you can get that totality. Or third, physician himself should observe and he can get that totality. So if you want to make a portrait of the disease, there are three important sources from whom you can get the portrait of disease: the patient himself, the attendant, and the physician. From modern point of view, you must add the laboratory investigations is one more portal with which you can get the portrait of the disease. But what you have to look for? You have to look for the changes in the earlier state of health to the state of disease. And if you are able to get that, that is important for you. So it is not just a speculation. What he says, it is futile. Futile means it doesn't have any significance. You cannot prescribe on the basis of that. If you prescribe on the basis of that, many times you get only palliation, not the cure. If you want to cure, understand the language of the nature and language of the disease, and it remains hidden in the signs and symptoms. So this sixth aphorism, there are, for the students, there is portrait of disease, that is first short note they have to prepare. Second is unprejudiced observation, that is the second point which they have to learn from that. So that's all for today. Tomorrow we'll meet again, not on tomorrow, we'll meet on Monday with next part of it. I will highlight the details of portrait of disease on that day. And today evening we'll learn one more short remedy from the Mater Medica at 8:15. So that's all for today. Thank you being there. And Satyanarayan San, you have asked one question. In homeopathy, rheumatism and arthritis considered similar. Rheumatism is nothing but the affections of muscles and joints. It is not specifically only with the joints. Rheumatism is a big terminology, which the part of which one is arthritis. Arthritis is one part of the rheumatism. So these are two terminologies. One must understand rheumatism is a very big terminology. The one part of it is the arthritis, that is the inflammation of the joints. So these are according to situation we have to take into consideration. These two words.
Thank you, sir.
Okay?
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay. So thank you being there and good evening.
Thank you, sir. Have a good evening.